All right, so here we are, radicals review number 2. We're trying to simplify radical 63. The square root of 63, the prime factors of 63 would be 3 times 3 times 7. So we have 3 radical 7 is the final answer. Number 2, radical 80, x to the 5th, w to the 4th. If there's no if you're really not sure how to work these out, find the prime factors of 80 and write them out. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. Write down 5 x's and 4 w's. And start pulling out pairs. This would ensure getting the right answer. The 5 stays behind. Cross out 2 x's and write 1 down. Cross out 2 x's and write 1 down. This x, it'll stay behind. The w, cross 1 out, write 1 down, or cross 2 out, write 1 down. Cross 2 out, write 1 down. The 5 and the x stay back. So your final answer would be 4 x squared w squared radical 5x. In number 5, write out 50, the prime factors. 2 times 5 times 5. You have an x, you have 8 y's. And 5 z's. And start crossing 2 out, write 1 down. The 5 comes out. This 2 stays back. This x stays back. It doesn't have a partner. Y. You have another y. Still another one. And finally one more. Those are out. They come out of the radical sign. The z comes out. This z comes out. This one stays back. So what do you have back in the radical? 2x and z. Final answer, 5. Y to the 4th, those are out. Z squared, it's out. Radical 2xz. Now what I want to get you used to is that every time you see a radical, you need to be thinking simplify. So can you simplify radical 3x? Obviously not. Can you simplify, well, obviously, that's another radical 3x. You can't simplify that. But since you are subtracting here, you're going to subtract the coefficients. So 5 minus 7 would be negative 2 radical 3x. Now, in number 5, can you simplify radical 2x? No. Can you simplify radical 8x? Well, yes, you can. What do you get? You're going to bring down that plus sign, and then radical 8x is 2 radical 2x. So now, do you have like terms? Yeah, well, you have negative 6 radical 2x plus 2 radical 2x is negative 4. Negative 4 radical 2x. So again, are you thinking about simplifying radicals? Well, if you are, you need to simplify this. And going back on what we've done before, that's 2 radical 3x. Well, that's what radical 12 is. What do you have on the outside of the print? What are we missing here? We're missing this 2. So you have 2 times 2 radical 3x. And then we're going to have this minus sign. And don't forget to bring down this 5. Because when you simplify radical 27x, you get 3 radical 3x. Now, 2 times 2 radical 3, that's 4 radical 3x. Minus 5 times 3 is 15 radical 3x. And that's negative 11 radical 3x. Number 4, are there any plus or minus signs here? No. Then what are we doing? Multiplying. So my numbers outside get multiplied. 4 times 2 is 8. Numbers inside get multiplied. That would be 5 times 8 is 40. But what we're looking for here are prime factors. So 2, 2, 2, and 5. Pull out a 2. This 2 and this 5 stay back. 16 radical 10. Number 8. In number 8, make sure you're squaring the parentheses. It's more than just squaring the radical 5. It's 4 radical 5 times 4 radical 5. And 4 times 4 is 16. Radical 5 times radical 5 is 5. We're talking 80 here. Number 9. Are there any plus or minus signs here? No. Then we're doing what? We're multiplying, right? Negative 6 times 5. Those are on the outside. Numbers that are inside stay inside. So we're going to have 5. The 9 is 3 times 3. X to the 6th. Well, a couple of different ways we could do this, but you know, I started doing this way, so we're going to finish doing it this way. We have 3 more over here, and then there are 4 y's. So start pulling out pairs. Your negative 30 is already out. You're going to pull out a 3. This 5 stays behind. X, 1. X is 2, 3, 4. X to the 4th. This x stays back. Y times y is y squared. So you're going to have radical 5x staying back. So your answer would be negative 30 times 3 is negative 90. X to the 4th, y squared, radical 5x. Number 10. Again, goes back to when you can reduce your fractions. So 12 and 8 being underneath the radical sign can be reduced. And that'll be radical 3 over radical 2. 12 over 8 reduces to 3 over 2. Then we're going to rationalize the denominator. Radical 2 over radical 2. What's in the numerator? Radical 6. What's in the denominator? 2. Now, I'm going to guess that some of you tried to go ahead and multiply by radical 8 over radical 8. But here's what I'm saying. First, always try to simplify, reduce, simplify radicals, reduce fractions. Always do that kind of thing first if you can. Makes things easier in the long run. Number 11, radical 3 over radical 3. Radical 6 over 3 would be your answer. In number 12, you're just using the distributive property, so take radical 3 times 2 radical 3. Bring down the plus sign. Then you're going to be taking radical 3, so make it a 3, not a 5. Radical 3 times 5 radical 2. So you're multiplying this times this, and then multiplying this times this. That is the distributive property. So how would you multiply this? Well, you're going to have 2 on the outside. Radical 3 times radical 3 is 3, so you're going to have 6 there. Plus 5 radical 6. That doesn't simplify, so you're going to have 6 plus 5 radical 6 is your final answer. Number 13. Tell you what, you go ahead and do number 13 and come back, pause the video right now. When you come back, let's see if we have the same answer. So I came up with 20x radical 3 minus 10 radical 6x. When you multiply the first term times this first term here, you have this here. The 4 is already out. 5 and 15 is 5 times 3. So here's the first 5, and then 5 times 3, and then x times x, minus the 2 is already out. 5 stays in. 30 is 2 times 3 times 5. Here's the x. So I have 4 times, pull out the 5, pull out the x, 4 times 5 times x. Radical 3 stays behind. Minus, the 2's already out. This 5 and this 5 get pulled out. 2 times 3 is 6, so we have 6x underneath the radical. So you have 20x radical 3 minus 10 radical 6x. Number 14, let's do window panes. Here's how we do window panes. Remember this? Now this radical 12, I would change that to 2 radical 3. I'm always into simplifying radicals first. So 2 radical 3, don't have to. It's just easier to do it now than at the end, I think. 4 radical 5 here. Radical 18 is going to be 3 radical 2, so I'm going to put a 3 radical 2 here, and minus 2, negative 2 radical 2 here. Now, in the first box, I'm going to be taking 2 radical 3 times 3 radical 2, and I get 6 radical 6. In the second one, I'm going to be taking 4 radical 5 times 3 radical 2, and I'm going to get 12 radical 10. 2 radical 3 times negative 2 radical 2, and I get 2 times negative 2, negative 4 radical 6. And then in the last box, it's going to be 4 radical 5 times negative 2 radical 2, and we're going to have negative 8 radical 10. At this point, you add the boxes. We multiplied to get the boxes. Now we add like terms. 6 radical 6 minus 4 radical 6 would be 2 radical 6. 12 radical 10 minus 8 radical 10 is positive 4 plus 4 radical 10. Final answer. Number 15. See if you can do this one on your own. Stop the, pause the video here, and when you come back, let's see if you have what I have. In the first box, you get 2. Radical 2 times radical 2 is 2. In the upper right, you get 4 radical 10. 4 on the outside, radical 2, radical 5, radical 10. In the lower left, you have negative 4 radical 5 times radical 2. And that would be negative 4 radical 10. And then 4 radical 5 here times negative 4 radical 5. Well, 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. Then you have radical 5 times radical 5 is 5. Negative 16 times 5 is negative 80. The 4 radical 10 and the negative 4 radical 10 will cancel. 2 minus 80 is negative 78. Keeping in mind that number 16 is another window box, window pane, so you're going to do your boxes again. Try this one on your own. Pause the video. Let's see if we both come up with the same answer. And what I came up with on this one would be 7 plus 4 radical 35x plus 20x. That one was kind of a tough one. But if you have any questions on that, we can talk about that in class. Look at number 17. Isolate the radical, then square both sides. Then you can solve the equation. In other words, are there any numbers outside the radical we need to clear away first? No. So square both sides. You get x, because the squared and the square root will cancel each other out. You're left with x is equal to 576. Now do a quick check on this to make sure that it works. What's the square root of 576? 24, it checks out. In number 18, we're going to add 5 to both sides first because we need to clear the 2 and the 5 in order to have the radical by itself. So we have 2 radical x is equal to 30. We're going to divide both sides by 2. Did I square anything yet? No. Squaring both sides isn't necessarily your first move. We've got to clear the radical first. Isolate the radical, clear all the other numbers first. Radical x is equal to 15. Squaring both sides, you get x is equal to 225. Check that real quick to make sure that it works out. Put your 225 in there. Square root of that is 15. 2 times 15 is 30. 30 minus 5 is 25. It checks out. When you have a radical on both sides of the equation, immediately go to squaring both sides. This is the only exception that, to this necessarily being your first move. Is if you have a radical on both sides, just square everything automatically. You get x over 7 is equal to 2. Multiplying both sides by 7, you get x is equal to 14. 14 divided by 7 is 2. Radical 2 is equal to radical 2, so it checks out. Now in number 20, what are you going to do to clear away this 3? Divide, multiply, you're going to add, subtract. What are you going to do? Well, it's going to be subtracted. because 3 minus 3 is what will cancel out. I have radical 2x minus 1 is equal to 2 minus 3 is negative 1. When I square both sides, and when I say square both sides, I mean square both sides. Take this entire side and square it. I get 2x minus 1 is equal to 1. When you add 1 to both sides, you get 2x is equal to 2. And when you divide both sides by 2, you get x is equal to 1. Check out this answer to make sure it works. What's 2 times 1? 2. What's 2 minus 1? 1. What's the square root of 1? 1. What's 3 plus 1? 4. Didn't work. So this one is no solution. In number 21, when you square both sides, please square both sides. You get x is equal to, now this is 4 radical 3 times 4 radical 3. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 3 is 48. Is the square root of 48 4 radical 3? Yes, it is, so we're done there. In numbers 26, 27, and 28, use the formula D equals the square root of the quantity x2 minus x1 quantity squared plus y2 minus y1 quantity squared. You do numbers 26, 27, and 28 on your own. Come back and see if that's what you got for your answers. And go ahead and pause the video and come back when you're done. All right, so in number 26, I came up with 5 radical 2, which is about equal to 7.1. And in number 27, I came up with 10. Obviously, we wouldn't need the radical on that one. And then in number 28, radical 8.5, which is about equal to 9.2. That would be rounding off to the nearest tenth. And there you are for those. And numbers 29, 30, and 31, first thing you need to do is try plugging it into your calculators. Well, even before that, look at number 29. Look at how that's written. What's 6 divided by 3? 2. So what's 2 squared? 4. Now, if I were to ask you, though, to rewrite number 30 as a radical, what would you do? Well, the 2 is going to be the exponent that goes inside the radical, and the 3 is the root. So if I asked you to write this as a radical, you'd have to tell me the cube root of 8 squared. Or you could even simplify the 8 squared and tell me the cube root of 64. What's the cube root of 64? Plug it into your calculator, you'll get 4. But tell me, see if you can rewrite that as a radical, though. And it's the same thing with number 31. Can you rewrite this as a radical? Well, here's your exponent. Here's your root. So you're looking for the 4th root of 12 to the 3rd. How would you simplify this, though? Because I don't think it works out straight away. I don't think you can take 12 to the 3/4. So you're going to need to know how to rewrite these as radicals. Let's see if we can figure this out. Well, 12, isn't that equal to 2 times 2 times 3? So we're looking at 4th root of 12 times 12 times 12. Now, each 12, like we said, was 2 times 2 times 3. So I need 3 of those. I need 3 2 times 2 times 3. There's one of them. There's the second one. There's the third one. And now I need 4 that are the same. For every 4 factors that are the same, I can pull 1 out. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I can write down a 2. Do I have 4 3s? No, I only have 3 of them. Do I have 4 more 2s? No, I only have 2 of them. So those guys get multiplied back together. And remember, we're talking about the 4th root. So I have to leave that the 4th root of. Now, 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. 27 times 4 so it looks like about 108. So we're talking about 2 times the 4th root of 108. That about does it. Good luck on your test. Study hard.